So, what can people do to try and identify when someone's got mental health issues? What can people do to try and recognize it between your peers and stuff? And then what role has government got? What role has community got to try and identify mental health in black community in general as well?
I always think for those things, especially like you mentioned here in Australia, the first go-to person for any health issues is usually your GP. But I think people always think it has to be medical. I've got high blood pressure, diabetes. That's easy reason to go to your GP. If you're feeling anxious and having panic attacks, some people don't think that you can go to your GP. And in Australia, we've got lots of initiatives where you can actually go there, and if the GP recognizes that you might need therapy, or you might need a referral to see someone like psychiatrist or counselor, whatever it may be.
But is it through needing that, or can you just go to a GP and ask for a recommendation, or does it have to be something debilitating? In other words,
no. In fact, a lot of the time it's just a lot of the time. I think that's a misconception. So it doesn't have to be.
Yeah.
If you go there, and let's say something I think for me that came up is you always want to appear well at work. It's just you've always these high standards you're appearing. I go there and reading harder than other people, twice as hard as any of my colleagues, just because I have to prove something and have to be number one in class. You just these things, and they don't make you happy because you distract from yourself. So when you go to therapy, essentially I'm having first world problem issues. That's what it sounds to me when I say it, even I'm going to work, I'm being too professionalistic, it's causing me stress. Whereas when someone says that, okay, my mom was beating me up, I can go. But ideally you can go for anything, ranging from I'm not sleeping well, I'm getting more anxious, to full on I've got drinking problems and stuff like that.
So what does the GP exactly do?
He gives you the access. So we have, in Australia especially, the government has these things called mental health care plans. And essentially what they do is the GP just sits with you and says, okay, this is identified as a mental health issue. Right. You don't even have to have fit a diagnosis or depression, just like it's a mental health issue. And they can put you in. If you're going to see a counselor, there's a way to actually even get up to 10 free sessions per year for get therapy, which the government pays for. But then also, I think we were talking earlier,
so you can also tag team that with health insurance if you have it. Granted, there's usually waiting periods and stuff like that to be able to access it, but that tagged along with a mental health care plan, and usually you'd be pretty covered for a year of therapy.
So what if people haven't got a doctor or a good relationship with their doctor? Because that's one pathway, sure. So what about, generally speaking, people haven't got a doctor, they haven't got easy access to it, they don't know how to navigate the system, and a lot of people are like that. What can they do within community to just go, hey, how can you identify?
Speaking for myself, this is the first I hear of this plan, for instance. This is the first time.
That's it. I
had no idea that you can go to a GP and get this 10 mental health care plan or whatever. So even for myself, who's got a friend who's in I've got a friend in the field, and I don't know about this.
But can you get it whether you're working or not? Does it make any difference?
That doesn't make any difference because it's going to be covered by government. I think what's going to affect you more if you're not working, what your income would be for paying for insurance or further sessions, because you're covered for a bit but not everything. But with that, I always tell people, you have to prioritize your mental health as being the same way you prioritize any other medical thing. If you broke your bone today, you fractured your hand, let's say you do photography, you need your hands. You find ways to get the right care, see orthopedic surgeon, get covered. People prioritize that quite high. When it's mental health, they think, do I want to pay someone to talk to? Who am I going to talk to? Are there any black therapists in this? People give themselves barriers.
That example, though, physical versus mental, I would say would be completely different. If you're going to see a GP to get a mental health care plan versus a broken bone, A, you're not going to the ER, you're going to just book an appointment with your GP, and B, what comes from that is literally, it can be just from something as simple as, I'm not feeling like myself lately. You talk to your GP, they go, this could be tied into blah, blah, blah. Even if they only start you off with hey, here's 3 sessions, go and see someone, you call, you book, you make the appointment, you're in. So there isn't this, now granted people may not know that, but
that's a good point.
But that would be you putting up a barrier, thinking, it's going to be similar to this other physical experience, but it's worlds apart.
The barriers exist though, because obviously I want to go in and get seen. I've just kind of felt like I broke my thumb. So I'm not kind of creating a situation. I want to get help.
No,
I'm just basing it on
granted, but I'm saying that's
on the
huge
experience
difference between physical and mental. And as far as the when to go see, and you were saying professionally, this is a first world problem versus this person's been abused by their mother, every day. Well, again, granted, there are going to be those variances in degrees of reasons to go, but as you also said, with your broken thumb, you're going to look into, you can also get physio visits for free through the GP.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Oh, okay. Well, you can do that too.
I didn't know that. But that's the thing. That's the barrier. That's the barrier because
Going
it's
to see a
promotion.
doctor is a barrier. People in their minds think about it. When you say going to see a doctor, people get scared. I think especially minority groups culturally. I know we're making it a bit race related, but essentially black people, I find they have too many barriers just go see the GP because it's like, is this worth enough? No, I don't know what they're gonna do. Are they real options? I'm not gonna go. Yet I see other clientele. Let's say if my Australians informed, I won't say Caucasian Australia, but people are born in Australia, they know this. They've got a better relationship with GPs. They've seen their GP through a lifetime. For them, it's like, I've seen kids going to GP just to have a chat. They're stressed about that, high school exams. If I mention that to my friends, high school exam, go see your GP because you're stressed. That's not a normal thing.
That's a laughable matter.
It's a laughable matter. I know my boys will just look at me like strange way, but it's been normalized for the certain cultural groups.
That's an interesting point as well, though, because thinking about, okay, I would have gone for my thumb, and I didn't realize you can get physio for that. And so what could start off as like I just had a football injury could become a mental health issue because the stress that's faced from, you can't focus.
Yeah.
And you've got like, I'm right-handed,
there's pain.
right? And then it becomes like people get used to that kind of, what do you call it? When it's ongoing pain, chronic pain.
Yeah.
So they get used to that. Then all of a sudden it's affecting relationships because you're stressed out and you're just thinking about the thumb, right? It started off as a simple
You
injury.
self-medicate?
You self-medicate or have a drink, you can mask the pain. Don't worry about it now, I won't go, I don't want to deal with the hospital. Then your relationship, you're stressed out. So like, when you're tired, you can't deal with anything well. Because you didn't go, it's become a mental health issue. So now you're stressed out in your relationship at home, you're at work, you can't do your work properly. Now you're stressed out because, now my job's at risk. It's affecting, so it's a placebo effect, it's all tied,
They all tied together, yeah.
So that's a good point, because it kind of, it started off as just a physical thing, but it became a mental health issue because now I can't function, I can't think straight, I'm getting headaches stemming from that thing.
Same thing, like physically, if you don't exercise physically and move, it's gonna start affecting your mental health as well. So they're all tied up. It's all tied up together.
Yeah,
and
they're one and the same.
They're one and the same. You can't have a mentally stable life without being physically active or physically.
I was going to
So
say,
how
I
do you
guess you should
encourage
almost
people?
like just undertone it with waiting times may vary.
It's true. When you think about access, it's only maybe by being in the service. I know there's a lot, and I always talk to my friends. Like, how do I get out there and spread the thing? Because when you ask access, there's ED, there's GP, community centers, drug and alcohol centers, and the community where you can actually
ED, what you mean emergency department?
Emergency departments.
The abbreviations.
Yes, sorry. We're just so used to that.
Yeah, I know, it's
Doctor's
it's a
jargon. Doctor's jargon.
It's a barrier, isn't it? Because people don't know what you're talking about, and so they just tune out. They don't ask. They just feel like, that's not me. He's not talking to me. I'm not part of that group. I'm not part of the club. What are you talking about?
And the thing is, like, good thing with hospitals or emergency departments, it opens 24/7, right? Essentially. So if you guys had to take a guess, when do you think most people come in with mental health issues to hospital? What time of day?
Late in the evening,
Yeah, it's later in the day.
because a lot of it would be affected, like sleep and stuff like that as well.
Yeah, you stay up at night. That's when you have your racing thoughts, because you're not distracted by work, whatever you're doing during the day, errands. So that's when people come in, and that's when it's even quiet in the ED. And it's funny, I'll be there in ED. I mean, you can also have lots of other emergencies coming through. But from a mental health perspective, that's when you see people come in. This person will just come in like, hey, just not sleeping, but can I talk to someone? And then nursing staff are really good because they know this. We're used to this. This is the time people come out. You're not sleeping at home. You're not going to be irritable. You want to skip work tomorrow because you're already feeling crap about things. So where are you going to get your medical certificate at like 2 in the morning? The emergency department. I always find it's very difficult because you have to give it to people in bite-sized chunks because people are all different. I can tell someone, say, hey, go see your GP tomorrow, get a mental health care plan, book and see a psychologist. If it's really bad, you might need medication, you might need to see a psychiatrist. And that's already a lot. You see those steps there. It's already, those are the barriers if you break the plan too quickly.
The branding needs to change though. The branding needs to have a remix because it's not sexy to talk about mental health stuff. Like people just don't talk about it generally.
That's
so
true.
I'm interested in how do you shift that perception around, it's just normalized, like your experience. You're probably one of the first people my whole life that has been sent, not because they weren't doing well in school or whatever, by their family to have counseling.
Again, going through all the stuff we said earlier, keep that stuff to myself. It's emotional, so it's nothing. Not to mention something we didn't touch on earlier was there's like the real life, and this is coming from the States, so being UK, African, like the real life dangers that are there ever present, whether it be gang violence, whether it be unfortunate mishaps with the police, you know, things like that, they take complete dominance over how am I feeling today. It's like, okay, I got to get to school, I got to get back from school, make it breathing throughout all that, that's damn near a successful day. So even as a culture, what we deem as success, when not being able to experience things like university, traveling the world, relocating to a completely another country, that sort of stuff, heavily important. But back to the personal experience, that put me off of therapy for over a decade. Because again, it was, you know, if you're force-fed Robitussin, it'll have the nastiest taste in the world, whereas if you know, it doesn't really taste that great, but I need to take it when I have, you know, a deep cough. Again, how it's, you know, sort of nurtured and brought to you. And it was only after, becoming a father, I was just like, I actually need to, you know, relook at my views on therapy. So, you know, with your angle of it actually being brought to you at a early age being useful, but the way it was presented to you versus for me as a youth, it being forced on and then sort of naturally rebelling against it. Like there's so many ways to look at it.
So what would have worked for you?
Well, honestly, that's an unknown. I mean, I only had
there's
like,
no way to
I
know,
had the one
especially
experience.
at that age. There's no way to know. I didn't know.
No, I'm talking about now. Like
Now.
what your insight now.
Oh, my insight.
What would have worked for you? Like
What
you've got
can
some
work?
ideas.
You mean what can work for him?
Yeah, what can work? And it's not just you. It's kind of like okay.
But
he's
that's
thinking
what I'm
about-
saying. As a youth, like so, even trying to, in hindsight, you know, you can try and 2020 it and say, oh well, if I did this, if it was said to me this way, but in reality, if you're thinking about yourself as, say, you know, a 6-7-year-old, you don't know much about the world. You don't know much about yourself.
Of course not. But now we do, and obviously we can't. You know, past is gone. And we can only reflect.
If you're
on it
asking
and
how
go,
to normalize it now,
like
all right,
what
well,
do
I
we do
would
for
say
others? And there's going to be
basically-
other people in your situation who are youth, and they're still being forced into therapy. They're still being forced to take drugs. They're still being, you know, we've got a crisis with Ritalin, and people, we don't know enough about it. And there's obviously the good aspects of it are being overshadowed by the poor experiences because children are being forced into taking it, and they don't get, I don't think, sufficient support to be able to deal with that.
Okay.
You know, there are lots that are in that situation right now.
So my approach is, I'm the eldest of 5. I have 2 younger brothers. There's a gap of 8 years and 10 years. Obviously, we're all black men. They were born and raised in Australia. I had the American experience and then came over here, and just knowing certain characteristics of my depression, so, you know, not playing basketball as much, not socializing as much, basically isolating, and in some form self-medicating, I would then know within myself something was wrong. So if ever or whenever I saw my brother starting to do less of those things, gently opening up that communication, and also then within that stuff sharing personal experience, because you may have experienced within your soon-to-be profession, but you know, there's a huge difference between someone that is strictly textbook read and someone that has actually walked a few, you know, days in the life of. And for most people I've found, especially in the work I do, that feeling is more important than any words that can be said. So actually feeling the person is genuine, the person actually has the skill set to at least point you in the right direction, and the ability to listen without judgment, you know, open-eared, come and talk to me. Opening up those little bits allow the person to then, because it's a self-journey, so it allows that person then to go, oh, maybe I should talk about this. Oh, it is okay to talk about this, and especially if the person sees you as either an equal or potentially looks up to you, as in, you know, the older brother, younger brother dynamic. Wow, okay, you know, my brother's 6'6", solid, big black man, but he feels. You talk to the same way most things spread, you know, talk to a friend or two, open up that dialogue, allow yourself to be vulnerable within reason, and then, you know, you see the light flicker behind someone's eyes like, oh, it's okay.
What's the within reason? What's that?
Well, everyone's, you know, I can go and talk about my entire childhood and care and all the rest. Other people may not be comfortable doing that.
Right.
So knowing your own
some having
boundaries.
boundaries, yeah.
Exactly.
You have this experience, it was amazing. So
It's a maintenance
when
thing
should
as
we,
well.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So when should we leave therapy? When should we get out?
That's a good question.
You know, when should we get out of there?
Finally, good
and when
question.
should we?
Yeah.
And
I guess
when's a good place to get in?
usually if you're with a good
Why should we stay?